For 30 years, I made a living with my ears as an audio post-production professional and recording studio owner. And now at the age of 65, my hearing is pretty much shot. Hearing aids have reached the limit of what they can do for me, and I was given a rather surprising recommendation. How the heck did I get from there to where I'm at now? And what are the solutions and their pitfalls that lie ahead for me? I'm Vince Werner, and that's what I'm going to be talking about on this channel. About 2 weeks ago, I failed maybe the most important test I've ever taken, a speech recognition test at an audiology clinic that officially designated me as a candidate for a cochlear implant. Now, there's a ton of videos out there on YouTube that explain what cochlear implants are for anyone who doesn't know, but the really short story is that it's a bionic ear of sorts. A device is embedded in your skull under the skin, and that receives signals from a microphone and sound processor that's on the outside of your skull. The processor attaches to the implant via a magnet. The implanted part has a thin electrode array that's tunneled into a structure in your inner ear called the cochlea. This is a pea-sized, nautilus-shaped structure that contains about 3,000 or so tiny hair cells that, in a healthy ear, are vibrated by sound waves to stimulate your auditory nerve, which then sends electrical signals to your brain that you perceive as sound. Except that, in the type of hearing loss that I have, these hair cells are toast, especially the ones near to the outside of the cochlea that resonate at higher frequencies. They've been damaged by some combination of exposure to loud sounds, genetic bad luck, environmental factors, certain cancer drugs, childhood illnesses, and really who knows what else. Anyway, with the cochlear implant, the electrode array is inserted into your cochlea, and these electrodes fire off signals from the sound processor, bypassing your natural hearing mechanism to replace what those damaged hair cells used to do, stimulate the auditory nerve to send sound signals to your brain. Pretty freaking cool, right? Well, yeah. I mean, by and large, most people who receive cochlear implants do see an impressive jump in their ability to understand speech after, just a couple of months of rehab. That's awesome. Definitely a recipe for breaking out of the social isolation that so many hearing impaired folks fall into. People like me. I mean, that's the main reason that I've pretty much made the decision to go ahead with the procedure. Reading about the link between hearing loss and dementia, that was another big part of my decision. Besides, how awesome would it be to hear again, just like when I was a kid, or just starting my career, and enjoying music like I used to? Yeah, and therein lies the problem. Concern about how things sound is the reason that I said a moment ago that I've pretty much made the decision to get a cochlear implant. You see, no matter how sophisticated the technology is, there's just no way that a handful of electrodes are going to replace the 3,000 or so fully functioning hair cells found in a healthy cochlea. With the cochlear implant, the brain is getting signals that it's never seen before. And the part of the brain that hasn't seen the signal for, say, a chirping sparrow since the second Clinton administration is going to experience a bit of shock. And it'll probably wake from its slumber and shout, "What the heck was that?" From what I read, for some time after getting switched on or your cochlear implant activated, before the brain has had time to adjust to this new stimulation, the world sounds, weird. It's common for people to say that speech sounds robotic or high in pitch. If they can understand speech at all, they often say that they can't tell the gender of the speaker, or they'll say that everyone sounds like a cross between Darth Vader and Mickey Mouse. For many CI recipients, music becomes a bridge too far. Too much of music's complexity is lost, and so many people will just give up on it entirely. Now, for most people, this gets better in time, and with a few months or maybe years of rehab, but only to a point. So yeah, I'm digging pretty deep into this decision. At this point, you might have noticed that this video series isn't about recovery from total, profound deafness. Instead, it's from my perspective as someone who used to have good hearing, at least I think I did. I'll come back to that a little bit later, and then lost much of it slowly over a period of years. Everyone's experience with hearing loss is different, and the only valid point of view I have is my own. My hope is that many of you will be able to relate and maybe benefit from my own research and thought process. It is important to point out that I am not an audiologist or a hearing professional, and that anything I say in this series is not a replacement for advice from them. Do your homework and use this as perhaps a starting place, or perhaps just as a relatable hearing loss buddy as you go on your own journey. It sucks to feel like you're alone in all of this. Am I right? Okay. 20 or so years ago, cochlear implant was considered a bit of a Hail Mary pass reserved for only the profoundly deaf. Recipients tended to be people who had little to no experience with normal hearing during their lifetime. The little miracle of cochlear implantation was successful in bringing understandable speech to many of these people, opening up whole new avenues in life to them. The sooner that children who are born deaf get implanted, the better their young brains will learn to make productive use of them. However, as the technology has matured, the criteria has loosened to the point that people like me, who can function at some level with the help of hearing aids, but are finding it increasingly difficult to navigate social situations, or to be more specific, can't reliably order an oat milk cappuccino at the drive-thru speaker panel, can now qualify for a CI. So that's where I'm at. Hearing aids have reached the limit of what they can do for my ability to function socially, and it's not like my hearing is going to just suddenly start getting better. In fact, it'll probably get worse. So, do I stand pat, using hearing aids to get by and become a bit of a curmudgeonly hermit who develops dementia a few years before I might otherwise? Or do I trade what's behind door number one for an amazing technology that's highly likely to increase my speech recognition score from its current 9% in my left ear to 90% or so, but with the risk of making everything sound like crap, robbing me of the enjoyment of music that I do still have left? It's not an easy decision. So how do I go about making that decision? Will I go through with it? And if I do, how will I decide which implant system I want? The one from Cochlear, Advanced Bionics, or Med-L? Why won't my audiologist just recommend which one they think is best? How did I get here in the first place? What's the surgery like? What will it sound like? How will it change my life? Well, to find out the answer to these and many other questions right along with me, all you have to do is hit the subscribe button and like this video. It takes just a second and doesn't cost you anything. And it'll help make this channel more visible to more people who might find it useful. I hope you'll follow along with me as I go on this personal odyssey to become a less unsound individual. Until next time, keep listening.